Sorry? I can't remember. I don't know. Maybe 100.
Good evening.
Evening.
Hello. Thanks for making your way out here to Drumpellier tonight and at tonight. Thanks very much. My name is Simon McLean and I'm the newly appointed Managing Director of Ringwood Publishing, who are very, very proud tonight to launch George Barnsley's book, the Lanarkshire Police Chronicles, which I see many of you have got in front of you, and hopefully you all be taken with you on the way out the door. At the end of the night, you can get your copy signed by George and get any questions answered then. Just a couple of wee bits of form before we start. The raffle tonight, the proceeds of it are going to the care of police survivors, or COPS. And Susan Gibson from the organisation will be drawing the winning tickets later on tonight. Okay, just so you know. Sorry, Catherine. The prizes have been donated by the Retired Police Officers Association of Lanarkshire. Thank you very much. The Lanarkshire Police Historical Society, whose table is over in the corner here, and everything's counted. And of course, Ringwood Publishers, there's some books in amongst the raffle prizes there. It's something we couldn't sell at 9. We've got £50 garden centre voucher, whiskey, wine, chocolates, a framed picture of the Waverley, you probably saw it, a selection of books, and lots of other things. Thanks very much for those that donated tonight, and thanks very much for your purchase of raffle tickets. It's much appreciated. So, Ringwood Publishing. Just a quick word about who we are and what we do. We're celebrating our 25th year this year. And Ringwood is a non-profit organisation. We exist for two purposes mainly, and that is to allow new Scottish authors to get published, because it's very, very difficult to get published. Traditionally, it's all based in London, and it's very difficult to enter that space. So we, over the 25 years, have given primarily first-time authors a platform to get work into the marketplace. And along with that, we like to think that it's works of merit that we choose with our limited availability to publish. The second strand of what Ringwood does is that we use an intern programme for people who want to get into the industry, who would like to work or think they would like to work in the publishing industry. They've got qualifications, degrees usually, and now they need a bit of that very important commodity experience. And we've got a fantastic track record of getting our interns jobs in the publishing industry. Year after year, 2 or 3 times a year, companies now come to us as a first port of call, because our interns get to see the whole range of the process, the publishing process. And this is the end of that process tonight. So tonight, we're focused on obviously launching the book into the marketplace, giving birth to George's book. And as an add-on to that, what we would also like to do is pay homage to the officers over the years in our emergency services who have made the sacrifice, and sometimes the ultimate sacrifice, in keeping us all safe in the line of duty. So if you don't mind, what I would like us all to do is to stand and give a minute's respect in respect to that which the book is dedicated tonight to. You're going to hear more about that later on, about 2 officers in particular. So if we could have a minute's silence between us, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. So our top table tonight, most of you will know, is Catherine Barnsley, the boss, George himself, Tom Wood, and Graham Simpson. We've got someone missing.
Sandra.
Sandra, are you not coming up here?
I was chatting up Peter.
Oh, that's okay. Don't let us interfere with that. We'll catch you later on, Sandra. Okay. Thank you. So, let's get started. And our first speaker tonight is Tom Wood, QPM. He's a writer, the former Deputy Chief Constable of Lothian and Borders Police. Tom has written books on the World's End murders and lately Ruxton, the first modern murder, published by Ringwood. He writes the Inside Justice column for the Scotsman newspaper, and he contributes regularly to the online 1919 magazine. He's currently working on a 6-part podcast adaptation of Ruxton and a new book about the sex industry in Scotland. He told me to say this as well, that during his police career he had the privilege to command the East Lanarkshire Division of Lothian and Borders Police. He's also written the foreword that you'll read in George's book. Welcome, Tom. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Simon. The book about the sex industry, you know how some authors they will hold a competition or they'll ask for contributions to put your name in their books. Well, I'm doing the same but in reverse. So if you give me a tenner, I'll not put your name in it. Tonight's a rare privilege for me. I never thought I'd see the day when an Edinburgh boy, a Lothian and Borders officer, would be asked to come and speak at Coatbridge. It's a huge privilege. But I learned tonight that in actual fact the missionary work is almost complete because your divisional commander is a Lothian and Borders man. So things have come full circle and are improving. But I was saying, my reference to East Lanarkshire was, for a while I had the privilege to be divisional commander of West Lothian, which of course borders this division at Shotts and Hart Hill there. And we used to call ourselves East Lanarkshire because the truth was that in West Lothian we had a lot more in common with Lanarkshire than we did with the rest of the Lothians. We had exactly the same population, we had the same old mining areas, we had the same crime patterns, we had flute bands, we had orange lodges, we had all the best things that you guys have got. So I feel like a second cousin to Lanarkshire. You know, the sort of second cousin that you don't really like, but you've got to invite to your family wedding. Ladies and gentlemen, no one, and I mean no one, has done more to preserve and uphold the history and the artefacts of policing in Scotland than George.
Yep.
And it's not been easy, and it isn't easy. It has been an uphill struggle since Police Scotland was formed, and all of our artefacts and much of our history was kind of swept into cardboard boxes and left up at Tullyallen. And George and his motley crew, who are sitting over here, have championed us getting back and seizing hold of that stuff and making sure it's preserved. And everyone who's interested in the history of policing in Scotland owes George and you guys a thank you. And I say that genuinely, because we in the East were kind of Johnny-come-latelys to this, and we have benefited very much from George's determination to make sure that none of that stuff was just put in the bin or ended up on eBay, and that was very important. And I suppose, can I answer that phone? And this book is a continuation of that, really. George, isn't it? This book is a continuation of that. It's full of stories not only about policing, but about the communities that Lanarkshire Constabulary serve. And that's the important thing. The history of the police service is not just about the police service, it's actually about the community. And there's a lot of very, very interesting stuff. And I hope there's more to come, because I know that will be a vast amount of information out there. So let's hope this is volume 1 of the Lanarkshire Police Chronicles. And it's a fascinating read about people. And of course it's dedicated to two very special men, Ross Hunt, who I met, and George, who I never met, but whose death sticks in my memory for a simple reason. On the night of the Carstairs breakout, I was on duty. I was a detective, I was a firearms officer. At that time, we didn't have armed response vehicles. There was just several people on a shift at any one time were licensed to carry guns, and I was a firearms officer. And I remember that night particularly being called in to Fettes, and we were all armed. And I mean, it was, when I think about it now, there were these old Model 10 Smith & Wesson pistols that some of you will remember, these short barrels. You were given a handful of bullets and told to go on. And 2 of us went in the traffic car with a traffic driver, and we were sent. Every car that was available and every firearms officer available was sent away to go southwest, because we didn't know which way they were travelling. And I'll always remember that night, that special occasion. And when you're in the police service, you remember these nights. I remember Lockerbie, I remember Drumpellier, and you remember who you were. And I'll always remember that, because we went speeding down the road in this traffic car, approaching the Lang Wang, to try and head off these Moan and his mate if they were coming towards us. Of course they weren't, because I think one of your traffic cars put them off the road in the A74, was it?
It was down in Carlisle, in the M6, yeah, just off the M6.
I'll never forget the night. And I couldn't believe, some months ago George told me that neither George Taylor nor Ross Hunt had been honoured or rewarded for laying down their lives in the course of their duty. And I found that very difficult to believe, to be frank. And I still find it difficult to believe. It's not right. And I think George is absolutely right. Carry on campaigning to try and get the memories of these 2 men honoured. They should be. It should be. It's been a terrible mistake. It's been an oversight, and everybody here who's got a voice should add it to the call to have these 2 men and their memories remembered. So we wish you well in that, George. Just finally, I was thinking about volume 2 of this book, and I've got an idea. I think volume 2 could be famous crimes solved by Lanarkshire CID. Of course, it would be in the fiction section.
Or a short story.
No, the fiction section. Congratulations, George. Writing a book is not easy. If anybody tells you it is, they haven't done it. It's not easy. It takes a long, long time. It's a marathon. And it's a lot of work, particularly if you're writing a factual book, where you've got to make sure that all the details and all the data in it are correct. Because there's always someone in Tasmania who is an expert on a particular area, and they will be the first to email you and tell you about it. So congratulations, George. We look forward to volume 2, and I look forward to the rest of the evening and some reading.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks very much, Tom. Although you've not done our contract negotiations with George any good. It's going to be a lot harder now. Without further ado, let's hear from the book. Catherine, George's wife, is going to do a short reading for us. I know she's been practising. the last half hour or so.
Oh, I didn't touch it.
Didn't practice that.
No, I didn't.
Good man. Catherine Barnsley.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you. This is from chapter 18 of the Lanarkshire Police Chronicles, Locked Up for a Lock-In. As many will recall, the licensing hours in Scotland were quite strict until more recent times with 10 o'clock closings and little or no Sunday openings. In 1905 it was no different. 10 o'clock closing was the norm. On Saturday the 8th of July 1905, the Central Vaults Public House in Main Street, Cambuslang was open for business. It was a busy day with locals enjoying their short time off. On approaching 10 p.m, the pub, as usual, became very busy with people scrambling for their last drink of the weekend. Big queues at the bar and everyone gulping down their last drink. The staff eventually managed to clear the premises and close the doors. They cleaned up the empties, checked the toilets, bars and saloons of the premises, and finally locked the doors, turned off the lights, pulled the blinds until they started their shift on Monday. However, throughout the day on Sunday the 9th of July, there was a lot of gossip in the neighbourhood about strange noises coming from the central vaults. People thought they were hearing things and dismissed it. However, at about 8 p.m. on the Sunday, the family living directly above the pub thought they could hear movement and things being knocked over. One of the family was dispatched to the local police office to make them aware that something may have been wrong. Sergeant George Gordon, Constable William Nicholl and Constable Donald McNeill attended at the home address of Mr McLaughlin, the owner of the premises, and explained the noises within. They were handed the keys and they went straight to the pub. On opening the doors, they were met by a man covered head to toe and rolling about the floor, covered in sawdust. He was completely senseless with alcohol. The officers couldn't walk him to the police station and the drunk cart was called to the scene. The man was literally legless and had to be placed in the cart several times as he continually rolled off. Eventually he was under control and strapped to the cart. Off they went to the police station. The scene on the way to the police station at Clydeford Road was quite incredible. Families were returning home from the evening church services to be greeted by the singing, shouting and swearing of the drunken man. Their faces must have been a sight to behold. He was in the cells for several hours before any sense could be obtained out of him. When searched, he had a bottle of whisky in his jacket pocket. He was identified as Michael Hart, a miner of Smithfield Terrace, Park Street, Cambuslang. It transpired he had been out drinking for a considerable part of the day and became quite drunk. He decided that his last port of call would be the Central Vaults just before 10 o'clock for a quick drink. He ordered two, a beer and a whisky, which he quickly consumed. Prior to leaving, he headed to the toilet to relieve himself before the walk home. When he came out of the toilet, he went to the top door to find it locked. He then found himself between the external door and the internal door. He then decided to sit down and wait for someone to come and open the doors. It would appear, however, that he fell asleep and was missed by the bar staff, who had already checked and secured the premises. When he awoke, he found the pub empty. Perhaps he couldn't believe his luck. To keep himself occupied for the next 22 hours, he set about tasting the contents of the bar until he was in such a state that he started to knock over the tables and chairs, alerting the occupants upstairs. The decision then was what to do with him. He was eventually charged with theft of a bottle of whisky and kept in custody. Sometimes it isn't easy to identify the appropriate charge, especially in circumstances such as these. On appearing at Hamilton Police Court on Monday the 10th of July, he pled not guilty and was released on a pledge of £2. On Monday the 17th of July, he appeared at the police court for trial. He maintained his not guilty plea and was defended by Mr Castles, a local solicitor. The witnesses were called and the evidence heard. In summing up, Mr Castles submitted that the case had not been proven. The Procurator Fiscal had not established that his client had intended to commit theft and had been locked in by accident. The judges considered the evidence and they agreed with Mr Castles. The case was found not proven and the accused dismissed. In the bigger scheme of things, it really wasn't such a bad outcome. It was probably the best night that man had ever had, and totally free of charge. Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. Okay, our next guest tonight is Sandra Brown, OBE. Sandra is an author, an actress, a former teacher who was born locally. She's probably best known for her campaign to see justice for Moira Anderson, who disappeared from Coatbridge in 1957. Sandra's best-selling book, Where There Is Evil, helped her to set up a Scotland-wide charity in Moira's name to support children and families as well as individuals affected by child sexual abuse. In the last financial year, the foundation supported well over 800 clients of all genders and age groups and has been a lifeline for thousands over more than 2 decades. Sandra received her OBE for services to child protection in Scotland in 2006, and let's welcome her here to Drumpellier.
Thank you very much. Sorry to stand with my back to you. Very good to be here and see such a wonderful turnout for Georgie's efforts, because having written a book like Tom, I know that when you come across folk who say, oh, you know, everybody's got a book in them. No, I think lots of people are great telling you stories, but ask them to go and write it down in a literate and understandable way that's going to appeal to a lot of people is a very, very hard thing. I thought that reading that you gave there was just superb. I've seen the book in edited form, if you like. I've seen the proofs, and that story did make me laugh. Another bit that made me laugh was seeing the first police women who appeared in Lanarkshire. It was about 1929 before actually any were taken in, and the first couple of folk were absolutely incredible women, but who had to immediately leave the police force if they were getting married. And sadly, that also was the case when I went into teaching, because in the 1970s, if you were getting married, you had to leave in Coatbridge. I do remember that as well. But the bit that got me was the job advert for policewomen, which said, what were the duties? Don't laugh. The duties were assisting with searches, feeding the prisoners, and a bit of shorthand and typing. It's changed days, and all the better for it. You know, on a more sombre note, I think one of the reasons why George has asked me along is because I know what it's like to try and campaign when you think there's a great injustice. I mean, these two police officers, there has been an injustice done. And in the case of Moira Anderson, you know, a child disappearing from this area and her parents never knowing what happened to her and dying before anything occurred. I can't imagine a worse scenario. Christine Fulton, who set up COPS, I know Christine well, and you know, I remember her telling me about Lewis, her husband, and what happened. And you just think, why should it be such a lottery? If a police officer has gone out the door and gone on duty and they've met a terrible fate just trying to do their job, that should be recognised, it should be acknowledged. And I speak as someone my son's in the police, he's based in Fetis. Ross is a police officer and his wife Kirsty is also a police officer. And I think when it actually really got to me just what a difficult job this can be was one Christmas Eve where Kirsty was going out at our house 10 o'clock at night, and she said, would you and Lauren, that's my daughter, would you mind wrapping the last of the kids' presents? It's the things that we don't want them to spot, you know, nothing that's going under the tree, but I mean, one was a bike that was getting wrapped. And she said, you know, I'll be coming in at 7 in the morning. And I said, okay, you'll probably want to see them getting up, you know, having a wee bite and watch them opening their presents. And she said, absolutely. And she went out of the door, this young woman in her early 30s, And we live in Carstorphine, not so far from you, Tom. And you'll know that Carstorphine's quite an okay area, but not too far from us, just a few streets, you start going into Clermison and Drylaw, and there's less salubrious parts. But what I could never believe that while I was sitting sipping a wee Baileys, and we were listening to carols on the radio, and wrapping these presents, my daughter-in-law was 3 streets away dealing with a murder, and it was neighbours who'd fallen out, and someone had been stabbed to death all over the head of Christmas presents, and somebody taking umbrage. And basically, we didn't know till she came in at 7 in the morning, and I remember saying, would you like some Bucks Fizz and a wee croissant, wee bacon croissant? And she said, I think I need something stronger. She said, maybe take a brandy. I was like, oh, right, okay. And then she told us what she'd encountered. And she said, and it stuck in my mind, they knew there was a weapon. In fact, it was a bread knife. But they knew it was somewhere in the garden. And there was the neighbour and there was the offender. But she said, I was frightened to turn my back on this person for a second because they were clearly away with it, I don't know, drugs or whatever. But she spotted something between the bins, and it was the handle of the bread knife. So they were able to pick up the weapon and get it well out of the way. And that's just a wee example, I think, I'm not wanting to say any more, but I wanted you to realise, George, that there is an awareness of how difficult it is, A, to write a book, how hard it is to get a campaign off the ground, because believe you me, when I first started persisting and saying, why is Moira Anderson's case, why is she still a missing person? Why was this child's disappearance, why was it never upgraded to murder? And it was a horrendous situation and a very unusual one in that, due to my conviction that my own father had abducted Moira and was responsible for her murder. Quite hard to be the one to keep on asking the questions and knowing you were going to come across people, which I'm sure you have as well, that say things like, well, do you know, it's a long while ago. Just let it lie. It's not fair on these 2 men and their families if it's just left to lie. And so it takes folk like you and me, George, to come along that are a bit persistent and annoying and won't go away and keep asking questions. But you'll get there. You'll get there. The other thing I would say before I stop is that there's actually a link in the book. There is a link to the Moira Anderson case. And I think you possibly have figured what the link is. The whole dealings at Carstairs and what happened with these horrible men, Moan and McCulloch, when they broke out, was they murdered another inmate. And he was a man called Ian Simpson. And very, very strangely, in Where There Is Evil, I detailed the fact that he was the main suspect at the time to do with the disappearance of Moira Anderson. Peter Manuel was in the frame for a short time, but he had been in jail for burglary at Hamilton Colliery, so it definitely wasn't him. But Simpson was regarded as a very much the number 1 suspect, but was given a very strong alibi by his sister, I think it was. But I mean, how weird is that? I name him, and then George has to deal with him as well. So there's interesting links and threads that go through this. The George Abishaw, the same as Tom. The research is incredible. That you and your helpers up there, all the elves. There's lots of them sitting up there, have helped you with lots of things. A book doesn't come, it's not one person. The publishers have an awful lot of professional people to have to deal with it as well. But it's very, very important, and you've done everybody proud, but especially your own family and the families of these men. So well done.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Thank you. Much to ponder there. See some people taking notes. Sleuths coming out. Okay, our next guest is Graham Simpson. Graham is the MSP for Central Scotland. He was a journalist for 26 years and was Deputy Chief Sub-Editor of the Scottish Sun, also briefly worked with the Daily Record. And he was the South Lanarkshire Councillor for East Kilbride West until 2016 when he was elected MSP. Welcome, Graham. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much indeed. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. And one thing I didn't think I'd be doing was spending any money, but I actually have bought the book. I bought the book because I've got to know George quite well over recent months, and actually probably years now. It seems a while. I also enjoy reading crime novels, but this is true life. So I'm going to look forward to reading it. There's been some interesting stuff so far. I didn't when I looked at Tom, I didn't have him down as someone who knew all about the sex industry, but he appears to. I also was under the impression that George was actually entirely, he was the Lanarkshire Police Historical Society, but I'm pleased to discover there are more of you, and it's not just George. I'm listening to the story read out from the book about the guy who was drunk and fell off a cart. Reminded me of reading my own family tree, when various people who've had several similar misdemeanours. Some of them in Lanarkshire, actually, despite my accent. But let me tell you why I'm here. I'm here because George contacted me some time ago about the campaign that you've heard about, and the campaign to honour George Taylor and Ross Hunt. But for me, it's not just about George Taylor and Ross Hunt. It's about any emergency worker who have lost their lives in the course of duty. Now, we've used these two horrific cases to highlight the fact that some people, some service men and women who've lost their lives have not been honoured. So I took it up. I've been in contact regularly with the UK government and the Scottish government. We held a debate in the Scottish Parliament. All parties were supportive. I continue to push the UK government on this because ultimately it will be for them to create a new award. This would be a brand new award for any, as I say, for any emergency work. I think it should extend beyond police. It should be, fire service, ambulance service. I would even extend it to coast guards, mountain rescue people, anyone who's lost their lives. There should be some kind of award for their families just to recognise their service, and there currently doesn't exist that award. So that's what this campaign is about. It's not just about those two men, deserving as they are, horrific cases that they were. It goes beyond that. But we will continue to push, and I have to say, George is very persistent. He's not annoying, but he is persistent. He'll keep at me. He just contacts me regularly just to check how we're doing. Unfortunately, George, as you'll know, the ministers in the UK government keep changing. So I've tracked down the current minister, and I am in contact with her. and I'll try and set up a meeting. But we'll keep going, and I think with your persistence and my persistence, we'll get there because it's the right thing to do. And I should say that this is backed by police in England as well.
Yep.
The Police Superintendents Association are pushing for exactly the same thing. So with their support and with the support of the Scottish Parliament, we will get there. And it is frustrating. It's taking far longer than I would like, but we'll keep going and we'll be successful. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Gail. Put me off guard there, a journalist only speaking for 10 minutes. Thanks very much. I would like to bring up our final guest of the evening, who's given us the honour of his presence tonight. Chief Superintendent Dolan has 30 years police service and is currently the Divisional Commander for Lanarkshire. Stevie's early career in Edinburgh from 1992 saw him perform a range of uniform and plainclothes roles, including within a specialised firearms unit. He has a varied operational experience at each rank and has performed the roles of local area commander in both West Edinburgh and West Lothian, and specialist operations superintendent within Glasgow. He recently had Silver Command responsibility for Operation Unicorn in relation to the death of Her Majesty the Queen. We're already looking forward to Mr. Dolan's book on Ringwood. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And before anybody asks, yes, I did join when I was 12. So, yeah, I'm delighted to come along tonight to support George, to support the publication of his new book, which I already bought. And I have already started to encourage my 1,400 colleagues in the Lanarkshire Division to buy the book. There's a number of reasons for that, and it's on a serious note. Graham used the word family. I would encourage us to use the word family as well and use the word respect. For me, policing is a family. And I know that can sound quite trite, but we've got members of the family who you like spending the day with, you've got members of the family who you don't like spending the day with, but families are all about stories, and families are all about history, and preserving our history and remembering our heritage. So I'm a Greenock boy who joined the L&B and then worked in Glasgow and now work in Lanarkshire, so I confuse everybody. But it's important that we respect our heritage and that we remember Lanarkshire Constabulary. We remember those who gave all the years of their life to policing in Lanarkshire. We joined up into one happy family a number of years ago into Police Scotland. I don't think anybody suggests things are perfect, but one of the things we need to do desperately is remember the heritage of those who have gone before us. And that's why George and I met for a coffee a couple of weeks ago, and there is 100% commitment from Police Scotland, from myself as a local divisional commander, that we will support the Historical Society and look to respect those who have gone before us. And I use the word respect deliberately because we talk tonight about Ross and we talk about George and the brave acts that they undertook. That bravery continues. I chair a meeting at 9 o'clock every morning and discuss what's happened in Lanarkshire the day before. And I am genuinely in awe of the bravery of my colleagues every day of the week. There were two colleagues honoured by Nicola Sturgeon 2 nights ago in Butte House in Edinburgh. They were awarded Brave at Heart Scotland Awards. Two cops from Lanarkshire, a couple of young cops, one of whom almost lost a hand because they were attacked with a machete. They were given an award 2 nights ago. Now, I respect them. I respect everything they do because they leave their families at home, as we all have, and go to work, put your game face on, and do the job of a cop. I would say that we should all respect that bravery on a daily basis and pay tribute to them. The other brief point I want to make is history continues. I said to George when we met a couple of weeks ago, my colleagues are making history now. I would like to think that in 50 years' time, the next generation of people are sitting in here with a few bevies and reminiscing about them, because it's important that we do and keep those memories alive over the years. So thanks very much for inviting us along. George, you have the unfailing commitment of Police Scotland in what you're trying to achieve and to move forward the Historical Society.
Thanks, David.
So thanks very much. Thank you.
Thanks very much. I think we can see a theme here of the evening: remembrance and respect, community and family. And it's very interesting that the stories that are coming out, because what we've seen with George's book and other books is a tiny, tiny percentage of the stories that should be told. And we're always here at Ringwood waiting to hear them. Just thought I'd get that in. George, we haven't heard from you all night.
It's quite all right. We're on, yeah.
Yep, just check.
Hello. Yep.
Yep. George. I know that he's not been looking forward to this.
No, not at all.
But he'll soon relax. George, tell us a wee bit about how the Historical Society. Tell us about the Historical Society, your baby, really.
Yeah, well, several people's baby. It's
Okay.
got plenty of parents. Started in 2013, as Stevie mentioned. Police Scotland came into being in 2013, and the divisional commander at the time, Nelson Telfer, was looking for an event at Motherwell headquarters to celebrate the end of Strathclyde and to Police Scotland coming into being. So they approached the Retired Police Officers Association at the time to put on a display within the old canteen at Motherwell office, but the retired police officers didn't have anything really to put on. Catherine will know this, my loft was kind of, the ceilings below the loft were going like that with all the memorabilia that I'd collected over the years, so it was a chance to actually get it out and let people see it. So Henry, Jim Manson, Joe McIver, Catherine, myself and several others got all the stuff over. Sorry, Peter's sitting there, so sorry Peter, you're even staring me in the face.
Okay.
All went over to Motherwell and we got everything on display. Now, it was a particularly horrible day. It was kind of just coming out of the winter, and there'd been heavy snows and all the rest of it, and we thought there's not going to be many people turn up. There was over 3,000 people came through the office that day. And I think at one point, Jim and I'll agree, I think they were all in that canteen at the same time. And there was a lot of interest shown in the material, not only by members of the public, but serving police officers and retired police officers. So we got our heads together and we thought maybe there's something in this. And we had a lunch, sat down and decided let's start the Lanarkshire Police Historical Society. That's us now nearly 10 years down the line, and it's going from strength to strength. And a bit like Tom's saying about the East Lanarkshire branch of the L&B, we're becoming, I think, the Scottish branch of everything, memorabilia and museums. And we're pushing forward to try and get recognition across Scotland for the history of the police. So we've started here, always a great support from the division here, and Police Scotland, I must say. It's been absolutely fantastic. And that's us now, nearly 10 years down the line. And the stuff we've got, to let you know that the stuff we've gathered is now taking up 3 rooms in Blantyre Police Office. And we made the mistake one day of speaking to a guy at one of our events at Tullyhallen, who came up to us and says, "What is it you're collecting?" And we said anything. He says, "All right." He says, "Anything at all?" He said, "Anything." So he says, "Right, where do you keep your stuff?" And we said, "Blantyre Police Office." "Right, that's great." Next time we went to Blantyre Police Office, we couldn't get into the storeroom. He'd put the front doors of Pitt Street Police Office and the doors to the Chief Constable's corridor. Now, if you've ever seen them, they probably went up to that first beam there in the height, and they were about 6 foot wide. So we've got all 4 doors in Blantyre Police Office, all fully engraved with all the various the badges and stuff, but they were going in the skip. And since then, we've just gathered everything. I'll not tell you about our recent acquisition, we'll leave that till later, but we have loads of stuff now that takes us back into Victorian times right through to the current times as well.
Yep. And is the ultimate aim a museum of some kind or some kind of premises?
Well, the goal is to have a museum in Lanarkshire. We do have a small museum in Cumnock, which isn't Lanarkshire, obviously, but from the kindness and consideration of a businessman down in Cumnock, who Jim knows, he's given us space there to create a small museum. So we've got a small display down there, which is more a general display rather than just Lanarkshire. But the goal is to get something here, a permanent display of for policing in Lanarkshire.
George, we're talking about the legacy, really, of these stories. What's the origin of them then? Do you get them from court records, or is it old police memory? Is it records? Is it official records that you get these stories from?
We get some from official records. We've been fortunate enough to get some old cases and things handed to us and given in, plus some other bits and pieces that link to other cases. But the majority of stuff's coming from newspaper reports, and just doing research there, and then researching the people behind the cases, and then building a picture to eventually come up with the full story.
Because there's always a court reporter.
There's always a court reporter, yeah.
Guys, can I open up to the floor questions for George about either Historical Society or getting your loft cleared out?
Oh yeah, we do loft clearances, no problem.
Got some questions for George? If not, I've got one. When is this second book coming out?
Anytime you want.
Have you got lots more material?
Yeah, plenty of material. So there's plenty of stuff there. Yeah.
Good. The reporting of it, Graham, do you mind me asking about the politics then behind the campaign? What is the problem? Because it's so obvious to everyone concerned. Everyone that hears the story of Hunt and Taylor knows what's going on. What's your view on it politically, that there's a problem?
No, I don't think politically there's a problem.
Okay.
I think whoever you speak to agrees with the idea.
Right.
It's the process that's the problem.
Red tape.
Yeah. The decision make ultimately, this is a decision to create a new award like this is a decision for the King. So a recommendation has to go to the King, and the people who make the recommendation, it's a committee, a sort of shadowy committee that does not include any politicians. I discovered. So it's all civil servants. It's quite strange.
Yeah.
So they make a recommendation to the King. Now they won't. The chair of that committee used to be somebody called. You may have heard of him because he got the sack when Liz Truss became Prime Minister. It was Sir Tom Scholar, who was in the Treasury. For some reason, he was the chair of this committee. So of course he's now gone.
Yeah.
So we'll have to start again with whoever's taken his place. So the frustration is the process.
Yeah.
You won't find anyone who disagrees with the idea. So I just have to persuade. I think I'm going to have to get to Rishi Sunak, I think, and get him to kick some butt.
Can I ask, as far as I can see, the position's not the same in England, because a celebrity, it was on a documentary, they fought for years to get a monument in London to police officers who had died in the course of their duty, and that took a long time as well. So I can't understand why we have to go through the same thing in Scotland.
Well, this would be a UK-wide award. It's different. It's different to a monument. This is an actual award, like a medal, if you like, that you would give to families, and it would be across the UK. Now, Police Scotland have something which they've offered the families. I'm not sure, George. You may know whether they've got that award.
No,
yet.
not as yet.
Not yet. So Police Scotland have something which is great, but I think we need something across the UK that we could give to, as I said earlier, any emergency workers who lose their lives in the course of duty.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks very much.
I was going to say, the good thing is there's a precedent now, because there's a medal that's awarded to the families of service personnel.
That's correct.
Yeah, Elizabeth.
That's correct. That's correct.
So I mean that's very much a precedent, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's already set there, but they won't extend that to the police. So it would have to be, as Graham says, that new award. And the big problem is that I've found absolutely strange, for anything relating to bravery, they won't award anything that is over 5 years old. So when it comes to bravery, you've got to commit your bravery within a 5-year period, otherwise you're not going to be recognised, which just makes absolute nonsense of the whole thing. When you see people getting awards for knighthoods and everything, for making millions of pounds off records and all the rest of it, but you give your life for the community, for the public. Your families lose the loved one, and if it's not within a 5-year period, then we're not even going to consider it. It's nuts, and it is the civil servants that are the problem. That is the issue.
You must have a lot of patience, George, because I think that situation is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, it is. It's shocking. But the problem is that
Sylvester, I was talking to him as far back as a DI in '97. He's been on the go for forever, and he's behind your campaign as well.
Yeah.
But you just can't get these politicians who are bouncing about to just sign it off.
The politicians are
If you're on about the king would sign off at the government gave up.
it's the civil servants. The politicians haven't spoken to any politician that is not behind it. They're fully behind it, but they can't get the civil servants to tick it off and sign it off. It's just we just need to keep going, and we will keep going until we get the proper result and the result that we want. We're not going to give up. Not going to go away.
See, if you did get it, how would you want the families to get the award? Would you have to go down?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we would want. David and Paul Taylor are sitting there, the sons of George Taylor, and that's what we want, is for the families to be able to go and receive that award properly from the correct authorities, which would be the King or a member of the royal family, without a doubt. And that's what we're looking for. And it's to get something, I'm not saying it can never be closure for the families, it can't have that, but it's to have something tangible that the families can say, you know, that their loved one's been recognised for that sacrifice. But there's nothing. It's absolutely, it's astounding. I couldn't believe it, and I'll come on to that as well. I mean, that's one of the reasons for writing the book, is to raise the awareness of both cases of George Taylor and Ross Hunt. I thought both had been given an award, and it was only doing the research and then speaking to David and Adrian Hunt that you find out that there's nothing, not a thing, and they've been hitting their head off a brick wall for years and getting nowhere. So we're getting there. We're small cracks, like in an eggshell, small cracks, and those cracks will get bigger until the egg actually breaks, and we will get some.
Thanks, George, and don't give up, please, on our behalf. And I'm sure I speak for everyone here. If there's anything we can do, whether it's online or whatever it might be, to help that process, I think everyone's behind that.
Yeah.
And it's about awareness at the end of the day that will bring pressure to bear.
Could I just thank a couple of people for,
of course,
just to thank Catherine.
George, you can do what you like. You're the boss, man, right?
Just thank Catherine and Martin, my son down there. He's continuing the family tradition. He's just joined the police a week past Monday. He's up at Tullamore just now. Thrown himself away from his strict training schedule to be here. So thanks for their patience for obviously the time it's taken me to go through doing all of this. Thanks yourself, Simon, because you've got a role to play here as well. Simon was actually the one that suggested to me that I put a lot of stories. I had stories on Facebook, but I was never on Facebook, but Catherine encouraged me to go on during lockdown and put on some of the stories that I'd been researching. And that's why Simon picked up on that and said it might be an idea of putting them.
I looked at that tonight before I left to see when that was. Do you remember?
No.
It was January 21.
January 21. No,
so it's taken almost 2 years, and that's the process, the publishing process as it goes on.
Yeah. So thank you, and thank you for doing that. Encouraged me. Sandy down there from Ringwood as well, who I met with, and he was happy to take the book on as well and get it published. So thank you very much, and all the people involved in the editing and all the various other things. And Jimmy, Henry, Peter, all the others involved in the Lanarkshire Police Historical Society for driving everything forward, and supporting yourselves for being here tonight. Thank you very much, and buying the book. Really appreciate that, and giving us all this support. And hopefully, with the combined efforts of us all, we'll get the recognition for the families, the Taylor family and the Hunt family, that they duly deserve. And that's what it's all about. And that's who the book is dedicated to. It's dedicated to the two officers in their memory, and anything we can do to get them the recognition, and we'll do it, and have no doubt about it.
Thanks, George. Well done.
Thank you.
If I could just get Susan Gibson to come up, we're going to draw the raffle, guys.
Right, I'll get
George will sign your books for you if you want them tonight and don't have them signed yet, or any
Thank you
books.
very much.
After we've done the raffle, we'll just have an open time for George to sign your books and answer any questions or whatever. We all got your tickets ready?
How'd you get
I've not done this for a long time.
Catherine will give out the stuff.
You want it? Okay.
If Susan do the draw, and Catherine will give them out.
Susan.
Yes.
Susan will just tell us a wee bit about COPS, because that's who the charity is for tonight, that's where the proceeds are going.
I didn't know I was supposed to say anything tonight. This is a bit of a surprise. I became involved in COPS at the start of it because my father had been a sergeant in Cumberland. He was killed going out in a road accident. His name was Eddie Thompson, and he skidded in ice and was hit by another car and died as a result. So there wasn't really any support at that time. He just kind of got on with it, and a number of years later I found an article in the newspaper, and it was about Jim McNulty and Christine Fulton, and they were talking about a Scottish police memorial that was online. So I went on and found my dad's name, but there wasn't much detail there. So I got in touch with Jim McNulty and said who I was and gave him a bit of detail about what had happened. And he said that they were having a meeting because we went to start a support organisation for survivors. So I went along to this meeting in Straven, and then the next thing we were having a survivors weekend down in Lichfield, and I went along to that as well. So over the years it has just grown and grown as they've found more families, and they're often, I mean obviously I think the length of time I wasn't really needing support because it wasn't such a recent event for me, but it was a really good thing to be involved with that I wish had been around for me at that time. And now it's expanded to a huge organisation. There's when you go to Survivor Weekends now, there's I don't know how many hundreds, isn't there? They have a weekend where survivors go, and it's all about peer support. And they have a memorial service at Alderwas at the National Arboretum in Alderwas, and it's really a good thing to be part of. That hundreds of families are now getting that support that wasn't available for me in 1982. So really support COPS all the way.
Yeah, great cause, thanks Sue. We'll see if they're still clapping when you pull these numbers.
They might be booing me after this. I've got a sort of
Purple, or whatever.
Actually. It was like in a purpley grey coloured one, 408.
There we are. Is that a winner? Is that the toilet? Toilet break.
Nobody.
Oh, there it's
Nobody yet.
Oh, there we go.
Hey.
For the garden centre. There you go, thank you very much. That was donated by the
RPOS.
POS Lanarkshire.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got a yellow one now, and it's 126.
126. There you are.
Hey.
126 down here. Somebody help Catherine.
Yep, there you are.
There we are.
Another yellow one, it's 232.
232 yellow. Oh no! It's a bit. It's a bit. Let's check this. Let's check this. Leave it. Chief Super's put it back in again. Thanks very much.
Another sort of pinky grey one, 447.
447.
447.
Going once. Oh, up the
Nope,
back.
there you go.
Come on then.
Shy.
That's good. You're spreading them around the room. One of them will all
Here's a Waverley going now.
Oh, this is the Waverley picture, framed Waverley picture. Cracker. What number?
Good. 250, and again, the kind of pinky grey one.
250. 250. It's kind of purpley,
It's a kind of funny colour.
lavender. No.
Oh, there we are. Yep.
Catherine, how many more? Oh,
A yellow one, 292.
yellow 292.
Yep, there we are.
Oh, there we go. Number
355, a purple one.
355. 355. Kind of purpley, lavendery. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Over here at the lucky table.
Yes. Yellow 174.
Yellow 174.
Well done, John. You were working at the bingo. We got it? Yep.
Yep.
Another pinky purpley one, 429.
Pink 429.
How's 429?
Yep.
Oh, there we go.
Henry.
Henry. This is Harper.
Agnes here.
You just wait there, Agnes. We'll come to you.
Yellow 155.
Yellow 155.
The echo. That's the echo.
Sure. Oh.
No, we'll put it back in then.
What are your numbers, Tom? Just to make sure they don't come out.
That one's mine, so put it back in. That's what good. Sorry, so pull another one. 395.
What colour?
Pinky purple one.
Pinky purpley.
395.
Pinky
Pink.
purple.
95.
Pinky purpley 395.
Susan won there, but she's put it back in.
Oh, yep.
That's it. No.
They've not got enough room in their table.
Yellow 204.
Yellow 204.
Thank you. Pinky purpley 159, is it?
Pinky purpley 159.
Oh, and this is a special prize.
That's a biggie. Purple 159.
Hope Tom gets this.
The second prize.
Yellow 258.
258, yellow.
Yellow 258.
Oh, lucky. So it's... Look at the delight.
It's for the book.
I can't believe it.
Get that 258.
Did you get yellow 258?
258, yellow.
George, we think it was Neil Gilbert.
Was he away? No. Just redraw it.
Can you keep it for him? What is it? A makeup one. Perfect. Perfect.
Put it back in.
Put it back in.
Put it back in.
Next one.
Another pink one, 205.
Pink 205.
We're nearly there. Oh,
Yep.
there we go.
Cool.
My makeup bag.
Yeah, it is.
That's Christmas sorted.
Yellow 284.
Yellow 284. Yep.
Here we are. Many more customers.
Is that more makeup for Derek?
Last one.
Another pinky purple one, 279.
Pinky purpley 279. This one's alcohol.
279. Pinky purpley. Hey,
Hey! That is.
That's us. Well done, and thanks Susan for the draw. Very worthwhile toy. You gonna finish it?
Tell my Barnsley. That's it.
Just to thank everyone for coming along, and a special thanks to our guests, Tom Wood. Thank you, Tom. And lovely Sandra Brown, OBE. Graham Simpson, MSP.
He's away.
Stevie Dolan, Chief Superintendent. And of course, Catherine. Thanks very much, Catherine Barnsley. A big round of applause for our brand new author, George Barnsley. Thanks very much.
It's training now. Aye, it's training now. They want.
You going for a pee?
Tell them the bar's open. Should say the bar's open, remember?
Is this where you get taller?
Smile, come on, people.
Right.
Thank you.